The sun was bright, but the office floor felt cold and silent. Mr. Carlton, the boss, was pacing back and forth in his private helicopter hangar. His face was red with frustration. Today, he had given his team a simple task: fly the new helicopter across the city and land it safely. Yet, every single pilot had failed. One crashed into the training obstacle, another barely lifted off the ground. "I don't understand it," Mr. Carlton shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "Are all of you useless?" The employees looked down, afraid to meet his piercing eyes. Meanwhile, in the corner of the hangar, a small figure moved quietly, unnoticed. She was the cleaning lady, Mariah. Black, humble, with worn-out shoes and a simple uniform. She had been sweeping the floor, ignoring the chaos around her. She had seen him like this countless times before, always angry, always loud, always demanding. Today, however, something in her eyes shone, calm and quiet confidence. Mr. Carlton spun around suddenly, almost tripping over her broom. "Mariah!" he barked. "Get out of here. This is not your place." Mariah froze, gripping her broom tighter. "Yes, sir," she whispered, her voice small but steady. He took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Then, in a moment of pure frustration and impulse, he blurted out, "Fly this helicopter, and I'll marry you." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Mariah froze completely, her eyes wide. The other employees gasped. A silence fell that seemed louder than any roar of engines. What? She stammered, unable to believe what she had just heard. "I said it. Fly it, and I'll marry you," Mr. Carlton said again, pointing at the sleek helicopter behind them. "No one else could do it, maybe. Maybe you can." His eyes were a mix of anger, arrogance, and curiosity. Mariah stared at the helicopter. It was massive, powerful, and intimidating. She had never flown a helicopter in her life. She barely had time to even imagine herself inside it. Her hands shook slightly as she held the broom like a lifeline. "Sir, I don't know how to," she began, but Mr. Carlton cut her off. "Enough talking. Everyone else failed. If you can do this, you will be my future wife. Simple as that." He threw his hands up and leaned back, smirking in disbelief at his own words. Mariah's heart raced. She felt fear, shock, and, strangely, a spark of determination. How could someone like her be asked to do something so impossible? And why did the words, "I'll marry you," feel like a challenge rather than a promise? The other employees whispered behind her, some laughing, some shaking their heads. But Mariah didn't move. She slowly walked toward the helicopter. Each step felt heavier than the last, yet something inside her whispered, "You can do this." Mr. Carlton followed her, his arrogance still strong but his voice softer now. "Do you even know how to start it?" he asked, pretending to doubt her skills. Mariah glanced at him, her eyes steady. "No, but I'll learn," she said quietly, almost to herself. He froze. Not because of what she said, but because of the way she said it. Calm, confident, and without fear. For the first time, Mr. Carlton realized he might have underestimated her completely. The helicopter's engine roared in the hangar, waiting as if sensing the tension. Mariah stepped closer. She had no idea what would happen next, but one thing was certain. The impossible had just become her challenge, and the world around her, including the boss, would never see her the same way again. Mariah stood in front of the helicopter, her hand resting lightly on the door handle. The metal was cold beneath her fingers, but she didn't flinch. Around her, the hangar buzzed with whispers. Every eye in the room was on her. The employees were trying not to laugh, but they couldn't hide their disbelief. Mr. Carlton stepped closer, his usual arrogance barely hiding his curiosity. "You really think you can do this?" he asked, tilting his head. "You've never even flown before." Mariah swallowed hard. "I know," she said quietly. "But I'll try." The helicopter's engine hummed softly, waiting. She climbed inside, every movement careful, deliberate. Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest. She had seen pilots start a helicopter dozens of times, but this was different. This was her. No one was guiding her. No one would help her if she failed. She sat in the pilot's seat, hands trembling as she gripped the controls. Buttons, switches, levers, each one seemed alive, like it could spring to action on its own. Mr. Carlton leaned over the edge of the open door, watching her like a hawk. "Just start it. How hard can it be?" he muttered, almost to himself. Mariah's mind raced. "Okay, ignition first. Then throttle. Balance. Lift." She followed the steps she had memorized in her head. Slowly, cautiously, she turned the key. The engine roared to life, shaking the helicopter slightly. "Not bad," Mr. Carlton said, trying to hide his surprise. "Now lift off." Mariah's hands gripped the controls tighter. She pushed the throttle forward gently. The helicopter trembled, lifted slightly, and then wobbled. A gasp escaped her lips. She felt herself teetering between success and disaster. Below, the employees were frozen. No one knew if they should cheer or run for cover. The helicopter swayed dangerously, and for a moment, it seemed like it might tip over completely. "Balance it. Keep it steady," Mr. Carlton shouted, his voice full of tension. Mariah closed her eyes for a second, feeling the air currents, imagining the helicopter floating in the sky, just like she had seen in videos online. She adjusted the controls carefully. Slowly, steadily. The helicopter began to rise, hovering a few feet above the ground. A quiet murmur spread through the hangar. Mariah opened her eyes, surprised at what she had accomplished. Her confidence grew with each second. She could do this. She was doing this. Then, suddenly, the helicopter jerked violently to one side. A loose wire somewhere sparked, and a loud alarm blared. Mariah panicked for a split second, but then she remembered to breathe. She twisted the controls, her instincts guiding her. The helicopter steadied. Mr. Carlton froze in shock. He had seen many pilots, all trained and experienced, fail in this exact situation. But Mariah, she handled it like it was nothing. He could hardly believe it. Unbelievable. He muttered, stepping back. She's doing it." Mariah hovered above the ground, her heart racing. Fear and thrill mixed together in a strange, powerful way. For the first time she realized that maybe, just maybe, she could fly a helicopter. She looked down at the employees, then at Mr. Carlton. The room was silent, but it felt heavy with tension. Everyone was waiting for the next move, for the first sign of failure. But Mariah was ready. She had faced the impossible, and for the first time, she felt in control. And Mr. Carlton? He had no idea what had just begun. The helicopter hovered above the hangar floor, its blades chopping the air with a loud, thunderous rhythm. Mariah's hands were tight on the controls, knuckles white, heart hammering in her chest. She had never flown a helicopter in her life, yet here she was, floating in mid-air while every eye in the hangar followed her every move. "Keep it steady," Mr. Carlton shouted, his usual arrogance replaced by panic. "You don't want to crash before you even leave the ground." Mariah took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. The helicopter swayed slightly, teasing disaster. She adjusted the controls with trembling hands. "Focus. Just focus." Suddenly, one of the wheels clipped a support beam sticking out from the hangar. Sparks flew. Mariah yelped and jerked the controls to correct the tilt. The helicopter lurched sideways, scraping against a storage crate. "Pull up! Pull up!" Mr. Carlton yelled, his face red with tension. Mariah's stomach dropped as she forced the throttle forward. The helicopter jolted upward, rising faster than she expected. For a terrifying moment, she felt completely out of control, her heart racing. Adrenaline pumping like wildfire, the employees gasped. Some ducked instinctively, thinking the helicopter might fall right on top of them. Others whispered in disbelief. How is she still flying this thing? Use the left lever. Balance it. Mr. Carlton shouted, leaning dangerously close to the edge of the hangar door. Do something. Mariah's mind was spinning. She remembered the videos she had watched secretly late at night, studying helicopter controls online. She focused on the controls, feeling the rhythm of the machine beneath her hands. Slowly, she brought the helicopter back into a steady hover. A collective sigh of relief escaped the room. But the chaos wasn't over yet. The helicopter alarm suddenly blared, a warning light flashing red. The engine shuddered violently. Mariah froze. What now? She thought. The controls were sensitive, and one wrong move could send the helicopter crashing to the floor. Stay calm, she whispered to herself. You can do this. She slowly adjusted the throttle, moving the helicopter in small, careful increments. It responded, wobbling slightly, then steadying again. Mariah's confidence grew. She realized she could handle it, maybe not perfectly, but enough to survive. Unbelievable, Mr. Carlton muttered under his breath, his jaw tight. I've seen professional pilots fail at this. And she's doing it without any training. Then came the real test. Mr. Carlton leaned forward and pointed toward the hangar exit. Go outside. Fly it around the courtyard, he said, almost daring her to fail. Mariah's eyes widened. Outside, the open air was a new challenge. The wind could push her off balance. The open space made her feel exposed and small. But she couldn't back down. She nodded slightly and carefully steered the helicopter toward the exit. The moment the helicopter blades sliced through the open air, a gust of wind hit. The helicopter rocked violently. Mariah gritted her teeth and adjusted quickly. Sparks of fear ran down her spine, but she didn't panic. Slowly, she maneuvered the helicopter out of the hangar and into the courtyard. The employees gasped again, amazed and terrified. Some ran to get a better view, others froze, unable to look away. Mr. Carlton stood in silence, watching. He had never felt anything like this before. His heart pounded, but it wasn't fear, it was awe. She was doing the impossible. Mariah hovered there for a few seconds, feeling the wind whip around her. She realized something shocking. She was flying. Not perfectly, but she was alive. And she was in control. And Mr. Carlton, for the first time, saw her as more than a cleaning lady. The helicopter hovered gently above the courtyard, the sunlight glinting off its polished metal body. Mariah's hands were steady now, her breathing calm but controlled. She had survived the chaos of her first flight, and a strange thrill surged through her. She was no longer just the quiet cleaning lady. She was the woman who had just flown a helicopter against all odds. Below, Mr. Carlton's jaw hung slightly open. He had watched her with disbelief, fear, and now something else, respect. For the first time, he felt completely unprepared. His arrogant confidence had crumbled in front of a woman he had always overlooked. How? He started, his voice breaking slightly. How are you doing this? Mariah's eyes never left the controls. I told you. I can try, she said softly, almost to herself. But her calm tone hid a secret. She wasn't trying blindly. She had spent countless nights learning, watching videos, practicing mentally. While the world thought she was just a cleaning lady, she had been secretly preparing for a moment like this. A flashback ran through her mind. Late nights in her tiny apartment. The glow of a computer screen illuminating her face. Flight tutorials, practice games, diagrams of helicopters. She had absorbed it all. No one had known. Not her coworkers. Not her boss. Not anyone. She remembered her first attempt in the simulator. She had crashed dozens of times, frustrated, angry, and tired. But she had refused to give up. One day, she had whispered to herself, "I'll be ready. One day, I'll show them all." Now that day had come, and she was proving to herself, and to everyone watching, that talent and determination didn't care about a person's job, color, or background. Mr. Carlton stepped closer to the helicopter, his hands gripping the frame, his eyes wide. I've never seen anyone handle a machine like this without training. You've hidden something from me," he said, almost in awe. Mariah glanced at him briefly, her lips curving in a small, knowing smile. "You don't really notice people like me, do you?" she asked softly. "I'm always just the cleaning lady. I sweep the floors, I make the coffee, I'm invisible." "But invisible doesn't mean incapable." Mr. Carlton blinked. His pride struggled against the truth of her words. For years he had judged her by her uniform, by her position, by appearances. And now he realized how wrong he had been. A sudden gust of wind shook the helicopter slightly. Mariah adjusted the controls smoothly, proving again that her skills were real. She hovered above the courtyard, the blade slicing through the air with confidence and precision. You could teach pilots," Mr. Carlton whispered, almost to himself, eyes wide with disbelief. Why didn't anyone tell me?" Mariah shook her head slightly, still focused on flying. "Because I never wanted permission. I never wanted approval. I just wanted to be ready for the right moment." The employees below had stopped whispering. They were staring up, mouths open, eyes filled with amazement. Some were shocked, some were inspired. The quiet cleaning lady had transformed into a hero in their eyes, a symbol that skill, courage, and determination could come from the most unexpected places. Mariah slowly brought the helicopter down, hovering smoothly above the ground. Her movements were confident, calm, almost effortless. And as the blade slowed, Mr. Carlton realized that this was only the beginning. She had not only flown a helicopter, she had flown past every expectation anyone had ever placed on her. And now, the question lingered in the air: what would she do next? Mariah's confidence was growing with every second she hovered above the courtyard. The helicopter felt like an extension of her own body, responding smoothly to her every movement. For a moment, she allowed herself a small smile. She had survived the chaos, proven her skill, and stunned everyone, even Mr. Carlton. But then, the wind began to change. A dark cloud appeared on the horizon, moving faster than it should. The first gusts hit the helicopter, shaking it violently. Mariah's hands tightened on the controls, her eyes scanning the sky. "Storm," she whispered, a shiver running down her spine. She could see it coming, dark and menacing, rolling in like a wall of gray. This was no ordinary wind. It was powerful, unpredictable, dangerous. Below, Mr. Carlton finally realized the gravity of the situation. "Mariah, get it down, now," he shouted, panic overtaking his usual arrogance. But Mariah didn't panic. She had to stay focused. Hesitation now could mean disaster. The gusts of wind slammed into the helicopter, tilting it dangerously to one side. The courtyard beneath them shrank in perspective, the buildings around them swaying as the storm approached. Mariah's pulse raced, but she drew on every secret lesson she had learned. Every hour she had spent practicing in her tiny apartment. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, voice steady despite the fear. "Focus, one step at a time." The storm hit full force, rain pelting the windshield, lightning cracking across the sky. The helicopter shook as if it had a life of its own. Mariah fought to keep it steady, adjusting the controls with precision, her instincts guiding her. The storm wanted to take control, but she refused. Mr. Carlton gripped the edge of the hangar roof, watching in disbelief. Every professional pilot he had ever hired would have crashed by now. Yet Mariah, the quiet cleaning lady, was holding her own. He couldn't look away. His pride and ego battled with the awe he felt. A sudden lightning strike hit nearby, startling Mariah and shaking the helicopter violently. She felt the power surge through the controls, almost knocking her hands off. She clenched them tighter, her mind working faster than ever. With a deep breath, she countered the tilt, leveled the helicopter, and regained control. The employees below were frozen, watching in terror and amazement. Some whispered prayers. Some held their breath. No one had expected this quiet woman to survive, much less thrive. In the face of such danger, Mariah guided the helicopter skillfully through the storm, each movement precise, almost graceful. She had learned to read the wind, to feel the shifts in the air, to anticipate danger before it hit. Her secret talent, her hidden hours of preparation, were now paying off in the most spectacular way. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she managed to maneuver the helicopter to a small clearing nearby. The rain still poured and the wind still raged, but she had gained control. Slowly, carefully, she began her descent. The helicopter touched down safely, wheels meeting the ground with a soft thud. Mr. Carlton ran toward her, drenched and pale. I don't understand it," he stammered. No one could have survived that storm." Mariah climbed out, rain dripping from her hair and uniform, her face calm despite the adrenaline. "I told you," she said simply. "I just needed a chance." The storm continued to rage around them, but Mariah had already proven something far greater than surviving a helicopter flight. She had shown courage, skill, and determination. And for the first time, everyone, including Mr. Carlton, realized she was unstoppable. The storm had passed, leaving a wet, glistening courtyard behind. The helicopter sat silently, blades still, like a conquered beast. Mariah climbed out, dripping wet but steady, her chest heaving from the adrenaline. Around her, employees whispered, staring at her in awe. She had done what no one thought possible. Mr. Carlton approached slowly, water running down his expensive suit. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. Gone was the boss who barked orders and mocked failures. This was a man who was seeing the truth, a truth he could no longer deny. I don't understand it," he said, shaking his head, voice unsteady. "How did you?" Mariah met his eyes, calm, unwavering. "I told you I could try," she said. "I just needed the chance." Mr. Carlton swallowed hard. Pride, arrogance, and ego had always been his shield. But now, standing in front of Mariah, he felt a strange unease. He had underestimated her, dismissed her as invisible, unworthy. And now he realized he had been completely wrong. You're incredible," he admitted, voice low. "I've never seen anyone handle a helicopter, especially in a storm, the way you just did. Not my pilots, not my best men. No one." Mariah didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked around at the wet ground, at the scattered tools and equipment, then back at him. "You only offered this because you were desperate," she said softly. "Not because you believed in me. That's the truth." Mr. Carlton flinched. Her words hit harder than any storm. He had been so sure of his power, his authority, that he had never considered respect as the currency of leadership. He opened his mouth, trying to respond, but no words came. For the first time, he realized that his arrogance had blinded him. The employees watched in silence. Some dared to glance at him, seeing the shift in his demeanor. The man who had been feared and untouchable now seemed human, vulnerable, awed. Mariah stepped closer, water dripping from her hair, her gaze steady. "Respect isn't given because someone is desperate. It's earned. And I've earned it today." Mr. Carlton's hands clenched at his sides. He wanted to apologize, to praise her, but the words felt heavy in his mouth. Instead, he nodded slowly, a mixture of humility and amazement on his face. "You've changed everything I thought I knew," he admitted quietly. "I've judged too quickly. I've dismissed too easily. You've shown me that I was wrong, completely wrong." Mariah tilted her head, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. She had no desire to humiliate him, only to make him see the truth. "Now you know," she said simply. A tense silence followed. The storm had passed outside, but the storm inside Mr. Carlton's mind was just beginning. He had to rethink everything, his assumptions, his arrogance, his own pride. For the first time, he felt small, humbled, and enlightened. Finally, he exhaled, a long, slow breath. "You're extraordinary," he said softly. "And I have a lot to learn." Mariah nodded, her expression calm, her mission complete. She had proven her skill, her courage, and her worth. And in doing so, she had changed not only the perception of everyone around her, but the very man who had once underestimated her. The helicopter gleamed behind them, a silent witness to what had just occurred. The storm outside had tested their limits, but the real test had been of character, respect, and humility. And Mariah had passed with flying colors. The helicopter rested quietly in the courtyard, blades still and gleaming under the pale sunlight. The storm had passed, leaving puddles and wet concrete, but the air still hummed with tension. Mariah stepped out, her uniform soaked, hair plastered to her face, yet she moved with calm confidence. Every eye was on her, awe, fear, admiration, and disbelief all mixed together. Mr. Carlton stood a few feet away, drenched and humbled, his expensive suit clinging to his body. For the first time, he wasn't the boss demanding results, he was just a man, staring at the woman who had just rewritten every rule he had ever believed in. He swallowed hard and spoke, his voice low and almost unsteady. "Mariah, I promised. I said I'd marry you if you flew this helicopter. And you did it. You survived the storm, you handled the impossible. You are incredible." Mariah looked at him steadily, her dark eyes calm but sharp. She had expected this moment. She had expected him to see the truth of her talent, her courage, her strength. But what she didn't expect was how she felt about him. Or rather, how little she cared about his proposal. "I know what you promised," she said softly. "But I never wanted your promise. I never wanted your approval either." Her voice was calm, yet carried the weight of authority and self-respect. "I wanted respect. And today, I earned that, not from you, but from myself." Mr. Carlton's jaw dropped slightly, his words failing him. The employees around them held their breath. No one had ever seen him speechless. Mariah continued, stepping closer to the helicopter, placing a hand on its polished surface. "I didn't fly that helicopter to marry anyone," she said. "I flew it to show what I could do. I flew it to prove that people like me, people who are overlooked, underestimated, and ignored, can achieve greatness." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some nodded, some whispered in awe. The quiet cleaning lady had become a force no one could ignore. Mr. Carlton took a step forward, humbled. I misjudged you," he admitted. "I thought I was testing you, but I was the one being tested. You've changed everything I believed." Mariah smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and satisfaction. "Then learn from it," she said. "Learn to see people for who they are, not for what they seem." With that, she turned away. Every step she took across the wet courtyard was confident, purposeful, unstoppable. The employees watched her leave, awestruck, as if witnessing a legend walk past them. Even Mr. Carlton couldn't move, rooted to the spot. Realizing that he had lost something he never truly had, her unquestioned submission as she disappeared from sight. The sunlight caught the helicopter, reflecting brilliantly off its surface. It was more than a machine now, it was a symbol. A symbol of courage, determination, and triumph against every expectation. Mr. Carlton finally exhaled, the weight of the lesson settling in. He had been humbled, enlightened, and reminded that true power wasn't in wealth, authority, or arrogance. It was in talent, courage, and self-respect. And Mariah? She walked away, not as a cleaning lady, not as a promise to someone else, but as a woman who had proven to the world, and to herself, that greatness comes from within, not from permission. Her story would be whispered for years in that office. A legend of skill, bravery, and the unshakable confidence of a woman who refused to be invisible.